Now, more than ever, humanity is at a crossroads that defies the imagination. Utopia or apocalypse? What will be the fate of planet Earth? It really is frightening to think of the risks we run every day. However, we have concrete evidence that we not only can, but will evolve over the coming centuries. Hard to believe? Well, the future is never certain, but one thing is clear. We have three possible paths to follow. The first is total collapse. Just imagine, a gigantic catastrophe threatening to destroy all of civilization, perhaps even driving us to extinction. The second path is less dramatic, but just as challenging. We reach a point where we can't progress any further. We become stagnant, neither moving forward nor backwards. And the third? The third is the most exciting: transcendence. This is where we surpass ourselves, reach unimaginable potentials, multiply into trillions, and transform ourselves in ways that today only fit into science fiction books. Remember, catastrophes are nothing new to us. Our ancestors survived asteroids, ice ages, supervolcanoes, and even devastating plagues. They always found a way to get back on their feet. Now, however, we face a different threat: ourselves. Since the advent of nuclear weapons, the risk of self-destruction has skyrocketed and is now more than 300 times greater than any extinction caused by natural disasters. It's a scary thought, but look, if we've already faced so many challenges and we're here to tell the tale, who's to say we can't face this one too? What are the real threats to our existence? Today there are 4 dangers that could change everything we know: nuclear war, climate change, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. But what would happen if we suddenly found ourselves in the worst possible scenario? At some point, let's imagine that we're in a world darkened by the soot of nuclear bombs, with global temperatures dropping by almost 18 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a chill that can't be solved with a simple extra coat, and up to 63% of the world's population could disappear. Although we have reduced a large part of our nuclear arsenal, there are still around 10,000 warheads lurking around. When it comes to global warming, the Earth is projected to warm by around 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit by 2100, which is already worrying. But what if I told you that the situation could escalate to an increase of 21.6 degrees Fahrenheit over the next few centuries? That's not just an extra tan, it's a crisis that could displace more than 1 billion people. Now there is a fascinating side to biotechnology. It could solve food shortages and disease crises. But there is also a dark side. Have you ever wondered if a small group of people could create a pathogen capable of causing a global catastrophe? Yes, we're talking about something that could be even more devastating than a global nuclear war. And finally, artificial intelligence. This could be an even more complicated threat to understand. It could be a great ally or, in the blink of an eye, decide that it wants all the planet's resources for itself, leaving us humans in the background. But let's be optimistic. Do we really need to worry about extinction? Despite all these risks, they are unlikely to lead to our total extinction. We are resilient. We are everywhere, from the desert to the tundra, and this gives us an incredible advantage. Even in a global disaster scenario where 99.9% of us were wiped out, there would still be 8 million humans left, more than at many times in our history. What's more, our ability to adapt is phenomenal. We no longer rely solely on slow, natural evolution. With technology, we can adapt thousands of times faster than any other species. And what about our diet? We are true masters of food improvisation, an essential trait that helped us survive mass extinctions in the past. But how much can we really take and still move forward? Take, for example, the Black Death of 1347. This calamity wiped out up to half the population of Europe and 1/10 of the people around the world. However, this monumental devastation was unable to halt human progress. Amazingly, just 200 years later, we were in the midst of the scientific revolution. Now think about it in our times. If we were to face a proportional disaster today, with our fully interconnected global economy, the consequences would be catastrophic. However, as long as our infrastructures and knowledge survive, we could still get back on our feet and resume the upward path. But what if the blow were so deep as to wipe out our global industry? What would happen if we lost agriculture and reverted to a hunter-gatherer lifestyle? In this scenario, the Earth could support only around 10 million people, a number similar to that of our ancestors 100 centuries ago. This brings us to an intriguing question. How many survivors would be needed to effectively repopulate the planet? According to population genetics and demography studies that explore the minimum viable size of a population to maintain sufficient genetic diversity and avoid inbreeding, the estimated number would be between 1,000 and 5,000 people. A really tight population bottleneck, and there's still a real risk that we'll never catch up. And the central issue is that our greatest threat does not come from a single catastrophic event. The real danger lies in the cumulative effects of multiple disasters that intertwine and interact in ways we can't predict. What if I told you that, in 2009, two scientists carried out a mental experiment that revealed how humanity could disappear completely? The story begins with a global war scenario that triggers a dizzying collapse in the world's population, along with industry and agriculture. In the second act of this dark plot, we see the Earth's natural resources depleted over the course of 2 centuries. And the grand finale? A devastating supervolcano eruption that tears apart what's left of civilization, leaving only a few survivors struggling in vain. Stop and think. It's not just a question of lives lost now, but of all the future generations that will never exist. Trillions of lives, unsung songs, unwritten poems, works of art that will never be created. All of this lost in our little corner of the galaxy, and perhaps in the entire universe. Hey, at least we won't have to pay taxes anymore, right? But all is not lost. In the frozen north of Norway, the global seed bank holds over 1 million samples of more than 4,000 plant species, a veritable treasure chest for rebuilding civilization. However, some thinkers are already aiming higher, literally. They propose lunar arches, like vaults under the surface of the moon, where genetic samples could be stored away from global disasters, erosion, micrometeorites, and solar radiation. But why stop at the moon? The real bet for our long-term survival is one that no other species on Earth has dared: to become multiplanetary. It would be a self-sustaining civilization on another planet. Not only would this drastically reduce the chances of our extinction, it would also open the door to a prosperous and long-lasting future. Of course, we would have our faults, and we would also face new challenges, but hey, who said the adventure would be easy? It would be nice to think that our civilization could simply continue as it is, without any major changes or disasters. That sounds comforting, but the truth is that the balance we know today may be much more fragile than we realize. Changes are coming, and fast. Technology and climatic conditions are evolving at such a rapid pace that we could soon be pushed in new directions, whether we're ready or not. And every 27 million years, it seems that the universe decides to reset the game here on Earth with a mass extinction, caused when our sun crosses an area full of asteroids in our galaxy. What's more, in around 1 billion years' time, the increased brightness of the sun will make our planet inhospitable to life as we know it. The oceans will begin to boil, and photosynthesis will be impossible. By the way, did you know that our tendency to focus on the negative is an evolutionary legacy that no longer serves us? Let's imagine an everyday situation to illustrate this. Suppose you found $100 on the street. Certainly, this would bring a feeling of luck and happiness. But now imagine that, on the same day, you lose $100 that you already had. The frustration and disappointment of that loss would be much more intense and long-lasting than the joy of having found the money. Even if the situations cancel each other out financially, the loss seems to weigh more heavily on our emotions than the gain. This phenomenon is one of the reasons why people are often more cautious about risking something they already own, even if the chances of gain are attractive. However, we have to think of alternatives. Perhaps living in an off-world megastructure, such as a gigantic space station that could house more than 1 billion people, with more than 1.85 million square miles of land available, the equivalent of India or Argentina, and built with lightweight carbon nanotubes. This structure could generate its own gravity through rotation, maintaining an atmosphere conducive to human life. Perhaps this is the kind of bold thinking we need to face the gigantic challenges ahead of us. Think about it. Since the Industrial Revolution, our quality of life has skyrocketed, contrary to all the bad news that usually dominates the spotlight. And it's not just talk, you know. Solar and wind energy prices are plummeting, often cheaper than the old, polluting fossil fuels. And it doesn't stop there. Artificial intelligence and biotechnology are leading us to discoveries that make the impossible seem like child's play. Projects like Google's AlphaFold are revolutionizing the way we find treatments for diseases like cancer, much faster than any scientist could have dreamed. Just imagine, we have more than 10,000 diseases caused by a single defective gene, and gene editing tools like CRISPR are giving us the chance to cure them all. Who would have thought that cutting and pasting could be taken out of crafts and into the laboratory, right? What if I told you that, at this rate, we could even regenerate lost limbs, eliminate diseases once and for all, and, who knows, extend our lives indefinitely? We are on the verge of a transformation that will change everything we know about human beings. And NASA? NASA is always one step ahead. It is using AI to design mission equipment that is 3 times better than anything a human being could create. And that's not all. They're developing cleaner biofuels and drought-resistant crops, essential weapons in our fight against climate change. We are at the beginning of an intelligence explosion that could lead us to artificial superintelligence. Just imagine, an AI that not only thinks like us, but thinks better than us, and can solve problems that to this day leave our hair on end. Of course, ensuring that it plays on our team is quite a challenge, but it's essential to ensuring a prosperous and secure future. If we manage to align this superintelligence with our values, we will have a future without disease, without hunger, where biotechnology will have stabilized the climate and biodiversity. A world where clean energy is as common as free Wi-Fi, and where science takes us to distant planets and moons. And what could happen if our thirst for energy continues to increase? By 2371, we could be controlling more energy than the Earth itself receives from the Sun. That would elevate us to the status of a Type 1 civilization. And if we continue at this rate, with an annual growth of 3%, in a few millennia we could reach Type 2, dominating all solar energy. We can dream big, with goals of colonizing the entire galaxy and even controlling the stars. But these grandiose dreams would be realized by our descendants, who would be far beyond what we consider human today. Perhaps more important than these grandiose achievements is taking care of our home planet. If there's one thing that history teaches us, it's that we should never underestimate human capacity. So, did you like the video? We want to know what you think. Do you think we're really ready and resilient enough to face a series of challenges as intense as the ones we've just discussed? Leave your answer in the comments and let's debate together.